Shivo Bhaktanam Abhayakara Bhaktir Bhavasagara Taranam Yatra Bhaktir Asti Shuddha Tatraiva Paramam Padam. Before time carved kingdoms into dust, and before temples became stone witnesses to human longing, devotion moved silently through the hearts of ordinary souls, turning them into extraordinary lights. Among these luminous beings are three whose stories still echo through centuries. They were not rulers, not scholars, not warriors. They were simple, human, flawed, but transformed by a love so absolute that even the gods paused to watch. Their lives were not meant merely to be remembered. They were meant to awaken something dormant in our own hearts. For even today we carry doubt, fear, exhaustion, and confusion. And in those moments of inner fracture, the Nayanars are not ancient figures. They are mirrors that reveal what devotion can make possible when the heart bows only to the divine. In the sacred lands of India, of the Chola kings back in the centuries, lived Dandi Adigal Nayanar, born without sight, yet gifted with a vision that outshone the sun. Every day, he traced the temple corridors with a staff, chanting the Panchaksharam like breath itself. On the western side of the temple lay a tank he wished to expand, not for pride, not for praise, but because his heart wanted the Lord's sacred space to flourish. A blind man digging a tank might have looked foolish to the world, but devotion has its own truth. Dandi Adigal tied a rope between two posts, one in the tank and one on its bank, and guided by that fragile thread, he dug, lifted, and carried baskets of earth day after day. His devotion was unstoppable, but mockery rose around him, sharp, cruel words meant to break his determination. When they snatched away his tools and halted his service, he did not fight or protest. He carried his pain to the sanctum, to Mahadev. That night, the Lord stepped into his dream with radiant assurance, and the king awoke with the same divine command as well. Before the royal court, Dandi Adigal walked into the tank chanting the sacred Shiva mantra, the Panchaksharam, and when he emerged, light flooded his eyes for the first time. In that single moment, the world he had only sensed became visible. His faith had spoken, and the divine had answered. Far away, in another place in India, burned a different flame, the Murkha Nayanar, whose devotion was fierce, raw, and confusing to the world. His vow was simple: to feed Lord Shiva's devotees every single day. Annadhana was his breath and purpose. When his wealth ran dry, he did not abandon his vow. Instead, he turned to gambling, not for greed, not for thrill, and not for personal gain, only to continue feeding the devotees. Here lies a deep truth. In ordinary life, gambling is destructive, bound to desire, ego, and craving. It fractures families, disturbs minds, and feeds ignorance. But Murkha Nayanar's gambling was not born of want. It was born of sacrifice. He gambled not to take, but to give, not to win for himself, but to serve the devotees of Lord Shiva. His hands looked reckless, but his heart was immaculate. Every coin won through the dice went straight into feeding devotees. Not a morsel touched his own mouth. His actions looked improper, but his intention was fire, pure, selfless, and egoless. And God measures devotion not by appearance, but by the heart. Where society saw sin, the Lord saw surrender. Where society saw a gambler, the Lord saw a renunciate who had burned his ego to ash. This is why his path cannot be imitated. It was not the dice that made his devotion holy, it was the death of self within him. In Tiruvambur, another place in India, lived yet another light, Somasira Nayanar, gentle, humble, and deeply sincere. Born a Brahmin, he performed rituals with perfect devotion, not for reward or recognition, but simply because the Lord deserved the best of him. His prayers were not transactions, they were offerings of love. What set him apart was his vision. He served the devotees of Lord Shiva without considering caste, class, or status at that time. Where society drew lines, he erased them. His soul saw only the divine wherever devotion was present. Drawn by inner grace, he went to Thiruvarur, another place in India, and surrendered himself at the feet of the great saint, another Nayanar, the Sundaramurti Nayanar, serving him with the quiet joy of one whose ego was dissolved. His life carried no dramatic events, no miracles. His life itself was the miracle, a steady flame of surrender that never flickered. And so, 3 lives stand before us, 3 flames, 3 paths, and 1 truth. Dandi Adigal teaches that faith makes the impossible kneel. Murkha Nayanar teaches that intention can purify even when the unthinkable. Somasira Nayanar teaches that surrender and humility are liberation itself. Their stories whisper one united message across centuries. Stand firm in devotion even when the world misunderstands you. Work with sincerity, not fear. Serve without pride. Love without condition. Let your actions be pure, not perfect, for the divine sees the heart, not the appearance. Dandi Adigal reminds us that disabilities cannot disable devotion. Murkha Nayanar reminds us that every condemned actions lose their poison when their ego has died. And Somasira Nayanar reminds us that the quietest service reaches the loudest place in God's heart. And as today's curtain falls on their secret lives, a deeper truth rises within us. You do not need to be great to reach God. You only need to be sincere. You do not need to be perfect to win His grace. You only need to be honest. The Lord does not choose devotees by status or success. He chooses them by the purity of their love. And the truth that unites these saints remains timeless. When a heart walks toward God, God runs toward that heart. When devotion becomes breath, the divine becomes destiny. And when love becomes absolute, the soul becomes immortal. May these stories not only be remembered but lived as reminders of the infinite power of a single devoted heart. Yatra bhakti tatra Shiva, yatra Shiva tatra nirvritti, yatra nirvritti tatra moksha, sa eva bhakta jivanam. May Jagat Pita Mahadev bless us all. Keep seeking, keep chanting, keep surrendering. Om Namah Shivaya.